Wave.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy.
What? You're already so annoyed by this.
The city council, I mean, it's just, with all due respect to our next guest, Ray Lopez, I mean, it's just such a buffoon operation. I mean, the whole city government is, and it has been for a long time. And Emma Mitz has been a member of that clown show for a long time. And she got slighted by socialist Carlos Ramirez Rosa, BLM Brandon's floor leader. Like, anybody cares about this stuff.
Well, she was physically blocked from entering a special meeting to talk about the sanctuary status being put on the spring ballot so we could vote whether or not we want migrants here.
Yeah, right. Carlos Ramirez Rosa trying to do blocking and tackling literally to prevent a quorum for a vote on an advisory referendum on Sanctuary City. And then what happened between him and Mitz in the hallway got the Black Caucus all up in arms, because this is something that gets them upset. I mean, the performance of CPS doesn't, but this does. And so everybody had to apologize, and Carlos Ramirez Rosa had to step down from his phony posts, and then they had to have their big makeup session, and everybody applauds, so everybody understands that all is right with the city of Chicago and the Chicago City Council. Emma Mitz and Carlos Ramirez Rosa are back in love. Wonderful.
Well, him grabbing her arm made her feel like she was back in the South.
I felt like I was back in the South. I felt like everything in me was shaking.
The alderwoman said she was at the meeting.
And did you hear the tearful apology from Ramirez Rosa? Because I know you love this soap opera.
I sincerely apologize to you, my colleague, Alderwoman Emma Mitz, for the disrespectful interaction that we had outside of council chambers, and for my overzealous attempts throughout the day to try and convince you not to be part of the quorum.
Mm-hmm. The most hilarious thing Emma Mitz said that Ramirez Rosa's conduct was unbecoming an alderman. What is that? What does that look like? Conduct unbecoming an alderman. Is there such a thing? Is there a category of behavior that constitutes something that would be considered unbecoming an alderman? I guess grabbing Emma Mitz by the arm and not allowing her to amble up to the perch he's held for 20 years to no particular effect. Oh, meanwhile, I mean, in less important matters than the relationship between Emma Mitz and Carlos Ramirez Rosa, two people that you don't know, and there's no reason you should. In lesser news, prosecutors have charged a Chicago man with shooting into a crowd of people, killing one and injuring another while he was on bail for a pending Class X armed habitual criminal gun case.
Man. Now
Now charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder. Now he's being held over for trial. This individual is the 24th person accused of shooting, killing, or trying to shoot or kill someone in Chicago this year while awaiting trial for a felony. The cases involve at least 39 victims, 12 of whom were killed. Does anybody want to talk about the 5-year sentence? Only 5 years. The driver in the Dakota Early case, where that culinary student was beat to within an inch of his life, lost half of his leg. He gets 5 years for that violent crime. Does anybody want to talk about that, or are we just focused on the city council love fest over resolving this conflict between two alderhumans? Anybody want to talk about the violent crime incidents year over year? Oh yeah, I know.
Armed robberies in our neighborhood. I mean, they hit the Starbucks. They hit everything that we use. The Mangy's, the hot dog stand, Starbucks, mortgage place, Big Apple, the pub. And what they just helped themselves. There was no police there to stop them.
So this is CompStat through October 29th. Year over year, murders are down 12%, and that's what everybody's hanging their hat on. Meanwhile, criminal sexual assaults are up 2%. Robbery is up 25%. Aggravated battery is up 4%. Theft is up 5%. Motor vehicle theft is up 58%. 24,680 motor vehicle thefts so far year over year, 2022 to 2023. And remember, you're coming off not quite historic highs in violent crime, but pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. It's not like this is coming off 2014, the 2014 dip. You're coming off 3 years that have been exceedingly violent, as everyone who's lived through them knows. But the most important thing is that Emma Mitz and Carlos Ramirez Rosa made up. I'm so happy. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Ray Lopez. He is the 15th Ward Alderman and congressional candidate for the Illinois 4th against Jesus Chuy Garcia. Ray, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, good morning to you and your listeners.
You'll pardon my cynicism, and I'm sure you anticipated it. But I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't get excited that this imbroglio between a couple of vestigial alderhumans was resolved. I just don't think it's that important.
Well, I think it's important for one reason and one reason only, is that there were illegal activities that took place, not just the assault on Emma Mitz, but the fact that he literally extorted 4 of his colleagues, saying that he was going to withhold legislative business if they didn't do what he told them to do. Yeah. So I think there's very much something at issue here. But what the city council did reaffirm with the mayor's tie-breaking vote was that victims don't matter. And I think that's what we heard through much of what you described about the rising statistics outside of murder, about the repeat offenders who clearly didn't read the Safety Act, which says that they have to be good until they go to trial. These individuals, politicians don't care about the victims. And even in the city council, you can be a victim. And we saw that yesterday. We saw people in tears because they had relived their experience with Carlos again publicly, being threatened, being intimidated, being harassed by him. But at the end of the day, the rot that exists in city council remains, even when the progressives are in charge, because everyone thinks that they are better than the last ones who got away with it. The FBI might not have been involved this time, but city council came forward and identified it first. There'll be investigations, but I think to your point, Dan,
the FBI is getting involved.
I mean, I just have to hold on. Wait a second. If someone like Carlos Ramirez Rosa can reduce you to tears, then you don't belong in public office, or having access to cutlery. I mean, are you serious? Carlos Ramirez is bringing people to tears. This guy is a dink.
I mean,
I don't. Took off the Palestinian scarf.
Well, that was Byron.
Oh, well.
But I don't argue that point. What I do argue is that you have freshman aldermen, you had some that are returning that really want to do things in their ward, and when you're told that nothing's going to get done and that your ward is going to suffer, and if you care about your people, yeah, that's going to bother you a little bit, and rightfully so.
Well, he's taken off the zoning committee. Sorry for interrupting, but he's been taken off. He's not the floor leader anymore, and he's been taken off of the zoning committee, right? Because of this bullying.
As of December 1st. Yeah. As of December 1st, he'll be taken. But I think, victims have to matter in this city, in this county, in this state, because the message we keep giving, regardless if it's blue collar, white collar, criminal, or otherwise, is that victims don't matter. And nobody cares as long as your arbitrary statistics decreases, even though it's been on the increase for 3 years. It's the decrease from the increase that we're still talking about here.
So I saw that the home sales tax increases, they made the ballot for the spring binding referendum question. Speaking of all this rigmarole, what was it about? What is the status of a sanctuary city ballot question for next year?
So that is still in limbo. We're hoping to put that before the voters as well. It's an interesting dynamic that the socialist left and the mayor are happy to have democracy take root in deciding whether or not to raise real estate transfer taxes, but don't want to allow democracy to have a choice when it comes to remaining a sanctuary city. And you have to ask yourself, why are they fighting so hard to prevent people in Chicago from having a say on sanctuary city? And I'll tell you both, the answer is very clear. Because to be perfectly honest, we could remove that ordinance from the books today, and it will not matter because Governor Pritzker and the General Assembly made it the law of the land for the entire state of Illinois. So even if Chicago were no longer welcoming, there's nothing we could do anyway because of the fact that the state preempted everybody in all 102 counties and made everyone welcoming. They've been happy to see us wallow in it to deflect from it spreading throughout the state. But if we were to remove that law, or voters were to ask for that law to be repealed, then the state law would be front and center at a time when nobody in the state government wants to be held accountable and shown for what they voted for.
Well, I mean, but you started voting on this issue and they turned the lights off. And then yesterday, you guys were locked out. What was that all about?
We had convened a special meeting of the city council to address this issue and to put this on the ballot in 2024. And that is where a lot of this shenanigans with Carlos took place. But the crux of it is that there was an orchestrated effort to subvert city council to prevent that ordinance, that resolution from passing, because we could have passed it last Thursday. So they shut the lights off, gavelled out illegally. Even the BGA said they did things illegally and improperly. But they don't want to recognize that fact, even though it's a matter of settled case law going back from the Herald Washington date. So we recessed the meeting properly last week, and we showed up yesterday, to resume the meeting that we had legally recessed. However, the law department and the city clerk, both citing incorrect casing, kept the doors locked, instructed the sergeant-at-arms not to let us in, and to further prevent the recess meeting from reconvening so that we could move forward on this item. Mm-hmm. The public was not happy. You know, they tried to slip in a watered-down version, not saying, shall we remain a sanctuary city, but shall we limit how much we spend on migrants, which is really a nonsensical and stupid question to ask, because either you're going to pay or you're not. And that was basically shouted down by the residents who were in the room, unwilling to accept that as a compromise. To her credit, Maria Hadden withdrew one of her referendum questions in the hopes of coming to a compromise with everyone who wants to see Sanctuary City on the ballot. So we're going to see where that leads us. If they're willing to truly have a compromise discussion, we'll take it at face value and see where that gets us for the benefit of putting it on the ballot.
On the ballot or off the ballot, do you know more about the Fifth Floor's plans for these base camps than people like alderhumans like Ronnie Mosley or Julia Ramirez seem to know when the base camps are being located in their wards, at least initially?
Well, if you have a blank piece of paper, I'd be happy to share the plan with you, because that's about all we have right now.
Yeah, but the mayor claims that they're still assessing on whether or not to use the site at 38th in California, but we know that he signed a land use contract between the city and the landowners for $91,000 a month. So why is he still dragging his feet in line to the people about this?
That's a very good question. And when we had our community meeting yesterday evening in my ward for Brighton Park residents so that they could have their say minus CTU, that was exactly what many of us said was, why won't you just be straight and honest with us if you know that you've already signed the agreement, that you're already paying rent until you don't need the place, and that if you know it's toxic, why are we doing this? You know, when you look at the 115th and Halstead site, the issue came up, raised by me yesterday in City Council, was that there's an eviction date of October 31st, 2024, written into the ordinance that says by October 31st, this property will revert to the local organization for their use. Well, what happens if we're still in a migrant situation then? What happens if we still have buses by the thousands showing up in Chicago? You're going to put them out onto the street and make them homeless, roaming the south side of Chicago? I don't believe that. And I think that's because it's just to get through the moment and not thinking long term as to what you're actually going to do and why you don't actually tell Joe Biden to shut down that border and starting deporting people.
Yeah, so I mean that's what you understand to be the approach. This is going to be like whack-a-mole. Everybody's going to focus on 38th in California. When that becomes evident, then you're going to look at 150th in Halstead, and then they're going to look at the next place and the next place. There's no sort of master plan. There's no established progression. There's no communication about any of that. It's just sort of per the vagaries of BLM Brandon's decision making.
Yes, and I mean, and that has been in full display for the past 6 months And look, I get it. He inherited this crisis. Lori Lightfoot actually thought that if she browbeated Governor Abbott, he would go back into his hole and hide from her because she was so powerful. That didn't happen. The migrants keep coming. All of the emergency contracts she signed thinking this would be over in 2 weeks are still in effect 14 months later, which is why we pay through the nose for all of this. But when I gave Gage Park to the administration to get the migrants out of the police stations, it was supposed to be temporary. Their presence was supposed to be, it wasn't supposed to be permanent, and there was only 160 migrants in police stations at that time.
Now what?
We are now up to nearly 3,000 still in police stations. So yes, it is whack-a-mole, and we're not winning this war. We're bailing water on a sinking ship right now because we're refusing to address the singular issue that keeps bringing them here, which is the fact that we still cling to this policy of being a welcoming sanctuary city. So if it doesn't matter because of a state, why do we continue to have this policy on the books? Take it off, stop the bleeding, and fix the problem that we have with the 22,000 people who have been sent here.
So once these big, huge base camps are set up, the people in the police stations are going to move out. When are we going to get our 7 park districts back? And be honest with me and tell me if that's not going to happen before volleyball season. But people want to know. I mean, we are paying taxes for park districts as part of our property taxes, and we can't go in those buildings.
I don't think that will happen because the only way that will happen is if the buses stop coming, if the people stop coming. By the time we build these tents, it'll be June. By the time we're able to get everyone out of the police station, the more buses will be here. We know that there are enough people at the border for 1,000 people a day to come on bus from now until August when the DNC happens. We're not building to accommodate 50,000 people. We're doing it, as you said, in a very piecemeal fashion, 500 here, 1,000 here, convert the House of Blues over there. But we're not thinking long-term on how you address the fact that we will, at some point, have an additional 50,000 migrant asylum seekers here in the city of Chicago. And if you're not doing that, that means you're never going to clear the stations. You're never going to clear the Park District field houses. You're never going to clear anything that you've taken from the taxpayers to address this crisis because you're not answering the fact that the influx of individuals will continue because the overflow from the border has not stopped.
He is Alderman Ray Lopez, 15th Ward. He's also a congressional candidate running in the primary against Jesus Chuy Garcia. Alderman Lopez, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Have you noticed cracked or sinking concrete around your home, driveways, sidewalks, garage floors, or patios? In addition to looking bad, cracked or sinking concrete causes an uneven surface that poses a safety hazard. Hi, I'm Roy Spencer, president of Permaseal. Would you like to fix the problem without replacing the concrete? We have the solution for you. Permaseal polylevel foam can be injected beneath concrete surfaces, leveling and preventing future settlement. Call Permaseal today at 800-421-SEAL for a free evaluation. The polylevel process is done with minimal disruption, quickly and at a fraction of the cost of concrete replacement. And unlike traditional mudjacking methods, polylevel foam is lightweight so it doesn't add additional weight to the area. Polylevel is the most durable and cosmetically appealing solution to your cracked or sinking concrete. Call Permaseal today at 800-421-SEAL. That's 800-421-SEAL or visit permaseal.net.
Hi, Wayne Burdick, Health Insurance Specialist. Open enrollment for individual and small group plans has arrived. There are many plan changes for 2024. Let me help you find the right plan. Lower your cost of insurance, reduce deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses. Call now, 847-274-5918, or go to lowercosthealthplans.com. Having an agent is crucial and no cost to you. Call Burdick Insurance at 847-274-5918 or lowercosthealthplans.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
At 7:07, the implications of yesterday's election results on tonight's GOP presidential debate that certainly should inform the discussion, what happened in Virginia and Kentucky.